long have you guys been here? We've been down there since like, hi guys, since like 7 o'clock. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm trying, my nail popped off. Oh. And getting out, thank you. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thank you. I couldn't get it back. Oh, you're recording. Okay. I couldn't get my nails. My hands were...
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Realest People in Real Estate podcast, where we talk about the real shit and not about real estate. I am Brooke.
I'm Tyra.
And I am Nicole.
And today we figured we would just kind of interview each other. So we're going to be interviewing Nicole and her story.
First things first, before we get into the podcast, we do have a special day. Today is Nicole's anniversary of her remission of cancer.
13 years.
So we're going to pop a bottle on that note.
It's time to celebrate.
I love it. Do you want him to pop?
Oh,
do you want to pop
somebody
it?
else want to pop it?
Was a pro.
I'll start.
I always make him do it at home.
We'll walk around and pour drinks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys can
All
do
right.
it.
Let's pass out some
Guys.
cups and celebrate this lucky number 13.
Oops. I'll keep that one.
She cracked it.
A little bit.
All right. Thank you.
And then y'all can split that one up.
Oh, we're popping. This always makes me so nervous. Oh, that wasn't bad. Good job.
You gotta let it fly.
Well, I don't know if we should in here. At home we do. I don't know if we should in here.
Oh, okay. He's gonna bring it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Like, this is great. I wasn't expecting this, and the flowers are beautiful, and
Yes.
I love it. So
Aw,
I'm super excited to celebrate this
We're glad you like it.
anniversary with you.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we can start talking while he's pouring. But,
Okay.
Okay, 13
13
13th anniversary remission of what?
I had stage 3 breast cancer.
Okay.
Yes. So we're in year 13 of remission, but I was officially diagnosed in 2009. So it's been 14 years since my diagnosis, 13 years in remission.
All right. Well,
Yes.
cheers.
Cheers.
Real quick before we get into the questions.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. You guys don't want any?
I'm spilling all over myself.
I know. I was too. It kind of went bubbly. But that's good. That's delicious. Thank you.
Okay, so
All right.
first, just kind of tell us about the day you found out that you had breast cancer.
The day I found out or the day that I had my experience in the gym is what ultimately led to me finding out.
Did you have any clues prior to then?
So in July of the year before, of 2008, I found a lump, and I was told that it was a fibrocystic cyst. And my doctor said not to worry about it. It wasn't a big deal. I could have it removed. I opted not to. So fast forward to March of 2009, the lump grew very large. And I was at the gym, and I went to the gym every morning super early. And being there, I was getting undressed, putting my gym clothes on, and I took my bra off, and there was blood everywhere. Didn't know where it was coming from, so initially I just pushed on one side of my breast, and it just was squirting out of my body.
Squirting out of what?
Out of my nipples.
Okay.
Yep, out of the right side nipple. And I, of course, panicked.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do, and there was a woman there. And to this day, I've said many, many times, I feel like she was my angel on earth, because I never saw her again after this moment. But she looked me dead in the eye and said, I'm going to clean this up. You're going to go home and you're going to call your doctor. And I'm still in a state of panic, because when I say there was blood everywhere, it wasn't an initial small amount of blood. It was everywhere. It was on the lockers. It was on the floor.
Oh, wow.
It was everywhere. That's how much blood was coming out. And
it was just you and her?
It was just me and her.
Okay.
There was nobody else. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. There was nobody else in the locker room.
Out of both or just one?
Just the one.
Okay.
Yep. So my breast cancer was only in the right.
Okay.
It was not in my left.
Okay.
But at that point, I still wasn't moving. And she looked at me and said, now. And the way that she said it was such a fierce tone that I don't think, like, you know how it resonates in your head over and over again and you hear it? I can still hear her voice. I can still tell you what she looks like, and I never saw her again.
Wow.
So you left and you went home.
I went home, and it's still only 5:30 in the morning. Doctor's offices aren't open.
Tell us about that. When you got home,
I called my mom.
Okay, so you lived by yourself then.
I lived by myself. I initially called my mom, and my mom's in the medical field. So she said, as soon as the doctor's office opens, call them. And as soon as I called them, they said, you're coming in today.
So you didn't go to the emergency room or anything?
No, I called my OBGYN. I've been to the same OBGYN. All my children were delivered by the same office. I had a super respect and trust level for them. So I immediately called him, and he said, I want her here today. And then everything just moved so fast. By the time March came, is when that happened. April came. I was doing ultrasound in a mammogram, which the crazy part about it is my lump didn't even show up on the mammogram. So that was a whole nother ordeal. I had to do, they had to take tissue from it. So fast forward from March to officially May, my official diagnosis was at the end of April, beginning May, and it was stage 3 breast cancer, and it was in my milk ducts, and that's why I was bleeding.
Yeah, so you're 27. At 27, we don't typically get mammograms.
No, and my insurance company actually denied it at first. They were not, because they don't issue mammograms to anyone under the age of 30. So my doctor fought for me to have a mammogram.
So they denied it even after what happened?
Even after my ultrasound where it showed the lump, my insurance company denied it. Wow. So my doctor fought, and he fought hard, and, I'm so appreciative that he did. Yeah. Because come to find out, that's where we were at. So at the time of my official diagnosis, it went from the size of a dime to the size of a tennis ball. So that's in that short period of time from July 2008 to March 2009. We're talking dime to tennis ball.
What were your thoughts, like leaving the gym, going home before you told your mom? Like, what were you thinking in your head?
I don't know if you can even process what's happening, because to have somebody look at you with such sternness and tell you, like, now. And like I said, it was always like a motherly figure, like, go now. I don't think breast cancer even came to my head, though, because I was 27. Now, if someone were to tell me that, I would say absolutely. Yeah. But at 27, I don't think it ever resonated inside of me that that's what was actually happening.
So how long did that last with, like, the blood just gushing out?
So everything moved so fast. So by May, I already had
in that moment in the gym.
I continued to bleed until I went to the doctor. And then it just stopped. There was no more after that. And he said typically what happens is one of the milk ducts probably ruptured. And that's what caused the bleeding. So once it was done, there's no more. Yeah. So everything after that just kind of happened so fast,
What did he do at that when you had first arrived to the doctors? Like, what did he do for you?
He basically, the same thing, was pushing to find out if it really was blood, was feeling the lump. So my lump was actually on my nerves. The where it had grown was on my nerves. So at times, if I laid on the right side of my body, the entire right side of my body would go numb. So that's why he thought it was a cyst, because typically that doesn't happen. So initially after that, he told me to go home, and he was going to call me. And, there's only so much that you can say without getting people in trouble. I have a lot of people in the medical world. So a very good friend of mine that I went to high school with actually is the one who made the phone call and told me I had breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't my doctor.
Wow.
So, and that's such a touchy, she's a PA and everything, but she came across my record. She knew what I was there for and came across my record and basically told me she wanted me to hear from her and not from a doctor. So when I went to the doctor, I already knew that I didn't know what stage it was, but I knew I was dealing with breast cancer.
What was your lifestyle like at that age? Like, why do you think that I know it's hard.
I know.
You don't know how you got breast cancer, but, like, what was your lifestyle like?
So at the time, I was going through a pretty rough divorce. I had a 2-year-old child, 2 turning 3, And I was working my butt off. Like I was working my ass off as a bartender. I was a smoker at the time, drinking processed food. And at the end of the day, if I had to equate anything, I would say it was my lifestyle. I wasn't, I mean, I was in the gym 6-7 days a week. So on the outside, you know, because that was my mental to release everything. So on the outside, I was great. I was in the best shape of my life. On the inside, I was killing myself.
Yeah.
And I think what people fail to realize, sorry about that, I just hit the microphone. I think what people fail to realize is everybody has cancer in their body. Every single one of us have cancer cells. And this is something that I don't think people understand. Yeah. But when the body starts to break down and the cancer cells start to take over, is what ultimately died. I mean, breast cancer doesn't run in my family. Nobody had it.
Oh, okay.
Nobody. Not one single person has breast cancer in my family, on my mom or my dad's side. So in the big picture, where did it come from?
Right.
Yeah.
You know? So if I had to say anything, I would say I was living a shit life. I was putting horrible food in my body. I mean, you can ask my husband now. At the time when he met me, it was like jokes. I had processed food in my freezer and alcohol in my fridge.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it was. Like, I didn't have anything healthy in my fridge. It was beer and wine, and what do? You grab a frozen pizza and throw it in the microwave.
And it's the food a lot of
Absolutely.
times. Yeah.
So if you ask me, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would tell you that's absolutely what the ultimate diagnosis came from. So
what was the next thing after you, how did that go when you found out that you had breast cancer?
It's fight or flight. There's no processing. I think people around me took it harder because when you go through something like that, it doesn't affect just you. It affects every single person around you. Yeah. So I think that the people around me, I had already processed it at this point.
What was your first reaction when you were told that?
It's funny. I have a journal that I documented through this, and the day that I found out was the last day that I journaled. And I'm sad that I didn't continue it, but it was almost like it just, emotions just stopped. And so when the doctor walked in and said, you know, my mom was sitting there with me, and he said, you know, we're dealing with stage 3 breast cancer. My mom like looked at me like, holy shit. And I was just completely emotionless.
Stage 3 is like, you know, it's not like the beginning.
No,
stages,
yeah. And my, there was a spot on my lungs as well. So, chemo ended up, you know, taking care of that, and we didn't do a biopsy of that, but there was some area on my lungs that they were concerned about. So at that point, I had already, you know, processed where everyone around me hadn't. So when I was emotionless, you know, at that point, I'm like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
You know, and everything happens so fast. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize when you go through cancer is you don't have time to really digest it. You just do it. There's no, what do we do? No, there's a board of doctors that sit there and they discuss your case, and they talk about you, and they figure out what the best objective and what is the best case scenario. And they just come tell you what to do. There's no, you know, negotiating or, so literally my official diagnosis came at the end of April. My port was put in May 6th. It's funny how you remember certain dates. But May 6th, my port was put in, and chemotherapy started a week later.
And so what does that mean by your port?
So when you go through chemotherapy, I had, they call it the Red Devil. It's adriamycin is the name of the chemo and it's the most aggressive form of chemotherapy for breast cancer patients. It's called the Red Devil because of it's red. It literally goes into you red. The problem is your veins aren't strong enough to handle it. So they put a port in your chest. It's a round port that they put in that is connected to the main vein through your heart. And the crazy part about it, and I've said this so many times, the crazy part about it is your heart has to be tested to find out if it's strong enough to handle chemotherapy.
Yeah.
And that's messes with you a little bit because you're like, wait a minute, because it can make your heart stop.
Right.
When it goes through your heart, it can make your heart just stop beating. And to digest the fact that you're putting something in my body that if you don't put in my body, the cancer is going to kill me. But if you're putting it in my body, I'm taking a chance that the chemotherapy is going to kill me.
Right.
You know, and at 27, that's a lot to digest. So all the chemotherapy, I still have a beautiful scar that is my war wound, but it goes through your heart and goes right into your vein system at that point. Because that's how it's strong enough to handle And chemotherapy, you sat there, it was like 3 to 4 hours, one session every
What were
week.
some of the symptoms from chemo?
Oh, wow. So they vary because the more chemo in your body, the worse they get. So initially, I didn't have any. And then I want to say after my first round is when my hair started falling out. So I shaved it right away. There was no negotiating. It was gone.
So you just went ahead and shaved
I just
all
shaved
off?
it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if I can describe it. And I think maybe only people who have hair, like, I don't know if guys would ever even understand, but if you wear your hair in a ponytail, have you ever like worn your hair in a ponytail and you take it out and you're just like, it hurts at the root?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like when that's what it feels like when your hair starts to die.
Oh, wow.
So it just hurt. It hurt. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't lay my head down.
Oh, wow.
So I just.
Is it like your scalp is actually
Well,
hurting?
yeah, like because the follicles are
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
So it initially hurt to do anything. So I wasn't even going to wait for the rest of it to fall out. So we initially shaved it. And that was after my first round. And then as more chemo, like, you know, your first round, you don't feel symptoms for a week. By the second round, you feel symptoms in 5 days. By the third round, it's 2 days. By the fourth round, it's the next day.
How did that feel when you just shaved it all off?
Honestly.
Did it feel freeing?
amazing.
I was going to ask that.
It's absolutely amazing.
I
And I
wondered
say
that.
I say to this day when it was growing back, I think I was so ready for I never wore a wig either. I had one, but I never wore one. I would just either walk around with a bald head or I would wear a head wrap. Like I would wrap and I would wear my big hoop earrings that I always wear and I look like a little, you know, like a gypsy with a head wrap and this big bun in the back. But I never wore a wig, and I did one time. And my brother-in-law looked at me, and he said, "Take that shit off your head. You look ridiculous." And I'll never forget it because it was in the middle of summer. I was sweating bullets. There was like sweat beating from my head, and he was like, "Take that shit off. Like, just don't." And I never wore it again.
Yeah.
So I will say I wish I would appreciated it more when my hair was growing back because it was probably like, I mean, how many people will say like, I'm going to shave my head? Like you don't wake up one day and be like, I'm going to shave my head today.
Well, actually,
Unless you're
I feel
Britney
like it's
Spears.
become pretty
It's
popular.
now, I mean, maybe now, but
Yeah.
I mean, but honestly, it was the most freeing and
I can
liberating
imagine it being
thing.
freeing.
Yeah.
I can imagine
Yeah,
that.
it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even growing back, though, it was, you know, I got to try all these new hairstyles that I never would try.
Oh, sure,
and,
yeah.
you know, and stuff that I would never, having long hair, would I ever just wake up and be like, I'm going to cut my hair in a pixie cut. You
Right.
know, where now I know what I look like in a pixie
Right.
cup. So it definitely was freeing. But it's also a realization of
Yeah.
what's to come.
Was
So-
it did it mess with your confidence? And
No, it
like
actually
that?
boosted it.
Really?
Believe it or
good.
not. And this is what I will say. And I've told so many people, I get phone calls all the time now about somebody who knows somebody and what do you do? And the doctors don't tell you what you're really going to go through. Because honestly, unless they've gone through it, a lot of them don't know. It's all what they've been told by other people. So I get phone calls all the time, but I will say this, I continued to live my life. You know, I continued, I love to dance, so I continued to go out and I would dance and I would continue to, I played co-ed softball. I continued to play co-ed softball. And I tried to make life as normal as possible. On the good days, they're good, and on the bad days, they're bad. So if you're having a good day, you better get out there and do something. And if you're not, it's okay to stay at home and turn your phone off and disconnect.
Okay, so did you have a removal of your breasts?
Yep. So I ended up in August of 2009. I had a full double mastectomy.
Okay.
The type of breast cancer I have, only 3 to 5% of women have it. It's a very rare type of breast cancer. So they told me that the likelihood of me getting it in the left breast was over 60%. So at that point, it was no brainer. But what comes with that is because it's in my milk ducts, I lost everything. Like was nothing about me that was real anymore. I opted to get breast implants. So I went under double mastectomy, woke up with completely reconstruction.
So it was all at
in
the
one.
same- okay.
Yep, all in one. There were 2 different doctors. One puts you under and does the first set, and then someone comes in and finishes the surgery. So, I mean, at that point, I was 27, and I'm like, okay, like this is where we're at. This is my body now, and I embraced it. But yeah, having a double mastectomy at 27 was definitely
That's a lot.
a lot. Yeah, a lot, especially in the midst of a divorce and, having a child. And just, I had met my current husband a month before I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
So we had just met at that point in February. And
How did that go with like having to tell him, and did it affect your relationship at all? Was it?
No, it's funny because we've talked about it in now future hindsight, and I think that I shut out a lot more than what I should have, and I didn't let him in. Who wants to see you? But he was the one who shaved my head, so I think there were parts that made us closer because we were able to spend so much time together, and that's when we really developed like a friendship that we were going through because I was home, I couldn't work. So we developed that friendship, but when it came to the cancer world, I didn't let him in at all. And in hindsight, I don't know if is that a good decision or a bad decision, but at the time, it was, but he was there for all my surgeries and, everything that I had went through. I just, he didn't go to my treatments.
So did you keep a lot to yourself, or did you kind of open up?
No, I kept a lot to myself.
Okay.
A lot. Who wants? It's almost like you try to keep a positive mindset, but at the end of the day, who wants to talk about laying on a bathroom floor for days at a time because you don't have the strength to get back to bed? I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. A lot of people would say to me, I'm so sorry you're going through what you're going through. And I would say, why? Because I'm not. I was never sorry for what I was going through because I think that it made me who I am today and a different person and able to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So, and help people. Like there's so many people that I have helped and, have become an advocate for. So at the end of the day, I was never sorry for it, but no one wants to hear about the ugly shit,
So you were taking care of a 2-year-old while you were on the bathroom floor and you couldn't get up. How was that? Who helped you?
Family.
Okay.
His dad was great with him at that point. So there is a lot of mom guilt. I did miss out because it wasn't just he was 2 turning 3, but there was many things that I missed, birthdays and stuff like that, because even after you go into remission, your body's still affected from the chemotherapy. So I had a lot of mom guilt, but I had a great support system when it came to that. And luckily he was young enough that I don't think he remembers a lot of it. So that's a benefit as well. But, he's a little boy, so what does he want to do? He wants to play all the time, and if there were days that I couldn't do it, I just couldn't do it. So, so support system is everything, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's good.
So
what's something, and this might put you on the spot
Oh,
a little
gosh.
bit, but
I've been waiting for it. I was waiting for it to come.
what's
Okay.
something that no one knows about that whole situation that you haven't opened up about, something that happened that you might could think of?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I don't, if you were to ask me that a couple years ago, I think I would be able to, at this point, I've become so transparent about the good, the bad, and the ugly that I don't know if there's any one specific thing that.
What's something that you withheld at the time, or like for a long time? How
I felt emotionally and mentally.
Let's talk about that.
The struggle in having the life that I had, and being a dancer and wanting to be out there and be myself, and then knowing that when people look at you, they know. I remember one time, I don't want to get emotional about it, but I was at the grocery store, and I didn't have a wig on, of course. I'm at the grocery store by myself, and this little boy is staring at me in the parking lot. And of course I smile and I wave like I'm going to get stared at. I have no hair. I get it. And his mom looked at him and said, "Honey, don't stare. There's something wrong with her." And I don't think she understood that I hurt her. But that was one thing, like, I never told my son. I never told him I was sick, because in a kid's mind, if you're sick, you're going to get better tomorrow. You're sick, you have a cold. So I never sugarcoated. but I don't think she knew that I heard there's something wrong with her.
Yeah.
So walking around, it kind of plays with you. Like, well, no, yes, there is something wrong with me, but, you know, is that how we explain it? Is that, you know, so that was probably a really vulnerable moment in time. But I've always like said to anybody that how do you explain to a child, you know, like if there is something wrong with me, how do you explain to a child? So I never really took it against him, you know, he's a kid, but that was one of those moments where you just have to keep on walking, you know, because I could have maybe said I have cancer but at the end of the day. So I think the vulnerability of accepting what life is something that I think I had a really hard time with.
Yeah.
How do you explain to your son? I mean, obviously he's seeing that you shaved your hair.
He shaved his head with me.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. William shaved his head the same day he shaved mine. So it was kind of, we made it a fun event. And, but we always used the word cancer. There was never a time when I explained to him that I was sick or that, because again, in a child's mind, especially at 3 years old, mommy's sick, she has a cold, she's going to get better in a week. You know, so we always use the word cancer. He always knew. Even now, you know, he's 17. So in hindsight, looking back, he's 17 and he knows, you know, the surgery that I just had was another cancer surgery. So I think the being open with them was probably because no one wanted me to, but I felt like I needed to, because once you start that breaking of trust, or if I would have, you know, told him I was sick or he didn't understand, I think that would have been like a downslide of questions.
Yeah.
So you just keep it real and keep it moving, you know? So
let's talk about the surgery that you just had.
Yes. So probably after like 2016, I want to say like 16, 17, it was right around the time I was pregnant with my 5-year-old, I started to feel off again. And things were happening I couldn't explain. My body was just shutting down. There were days I couldn't get out of bed and I thought there was something wrong. So, of course, you go back to the doctor. I'm getting blood tests. I'm getting all this stuff done. And they're basically looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm explaining to them what's wrong, which is, you know, symptoms that you're tired, you're getting older, your body's. And then the last doctor told me that I need to go see a therapist, that I was suffering from PTSD from cancer, and I needed to go talk to a therapist. And I knew that I wasn't crazy. So fast forward to 2019, I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine had talked about breast implant illness, some of the stuff that she was going through, and it triggered because all of her symptoms were the same symptoms that I had for years been talking about, and everyone thought I was crazy and something was wrong.
What were some of those symptoms?
Oh my gosh. Like the whites of my eyes were starting to turn yellow. So it's hard to explain because breast implant illness symptoms are very generalized symptoms. It's stuff that until the implants are removed, you don't know if they're associated. It could be stuff as far as your sinus. I had a constant ringing in my ear that never went away. Like, you know, when you go to a concert and then you're like, come home from the concert, and like the next day you're like, oh my gosh, my ears.
But that's odd though.
Yeah, and it was stuff,
happening.
and it just kept happening. Like the ringing was nonstop. Chronic fatigue. My eyes were changing. I could see it in my eyes. My joints were hurting. I'm trying to think even what else. Like if I even pulled up the list, there were so many that I could check off, and it wasn't everything that was happening every day. But again, I'm going to doctors saying I have chronic fatigue, and they're like, get more sleep. Well, I mean, when I say chronic fatigue, like I would go to bed at, 6 o'clock and not wake up until 10 o'clock the next day. Like it wasn't just like, some days I would look at my husband and be like, not today. I can't even get out of bed. So when I saw my friend post about it, she started talking about these implants that were recalled by the FDA. And I started, when she said the name, it started to trigger like, wait a minute, I think that's the implants that I have.
What was the name?
They're Allergan. It's like Allergan, Allergan.
Okay.
And they're textured implants. And what's happening is The silicone ones, something within the texture was causing another form of lymphatic cancer in women that could only be tested once the implant was taken out. The saline ones of this were growing mold inside of them.
So which ones did you have?
I had silicone.
Silicone. Okay.
I did have silicone. So I wasn't concerned so much about the mold, but I was concerned that they were recalled by the FDA.
Right.
So at some point, the wheels start turning and I'm starting to associate the implants with everything that's going on. And am I feeling this way because of it? So that was about 2018. 2019 is when I officially found out that they were recalled, and I had to get them out of my body. So that's when the process started of finding a surgeon. That was my initial surgery was April of 2020. We went into lockdown in March. So that got moved to October of 2020 when surgery started opening up. At that time, William and I decided we wanted to extend our family with one more child because once I had the surgery, they told me that it probably wasn't a good idea to have any more kids. So we opted to have another a child. And then once I had him, I had to wait a full another year for my body to get back to normal. So now we're fast forwarding to my original surgery after having a baby was September of 22.
Okay.
And my mom fell in May of 22, broke both of her wrists, had to have plate and screws put in her wrist. She was going to be a lot of our help with the kids between, her and my husband taking care of me. So I opted to push it back to December 1st. So December 1st, I officially had my implants removed and they're out of my body, which is amazing because I feel phenomenal.
That's great.
How do you feel now?
I feel absolutely great. William made a joke right after he said that I was jumping in and out of bed like I was 17 years old again, just because my knees didn't hurt. When I tell you my knees, I know everyone's like, oh, I've got aches and pains. When I tell you my knees hurt so bad.
So is that arthritis? Does it cause arthritis?
Well, it's just inflammation in the joints.
Oh, okay.
And there were days where I had pockets of fluid around my knees to where I couldn't even get out of bed because I was in so much pain. Oh, wow. And then I had the surgery and I was wanting to do squats because I was I couldn't believe it. My knees felt great. William said that as soon as I opened my eyes after having surgery, he said that my eyes just looked different.
Wow.
A lot of the ringing in my ears gone. There's no more ringing in my ears. And I continue to get better, but it's a major surgery, and there's so many women out there who don't even know, number one, that their implants have been recalled. Mm-hmm. I was never told. If I wouldn't have seen someone on Facebook, they didn't contact me and say, hey, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when you do contact the company, when they're recalled, the only thing they offer you is a new set of implants. So there's women out here who have these implants who can't afford to get them even taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm 7 weeks out from my surgery and I feel great.
That's good.
And life is just getting better. It's a healing process, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're at 13 years today. Hopefully I only have one more surgery after this. It'll be a minor surgery, just a little revision.
Okay.
And then I should be done. Knock on wood.
Yay.
Hopefully,
Awesome.
I know. I should be done.
Good.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should end it there.
Yeah.
I have one more thing
Okay.
though.
Oh.
To say. What would be your advice to women who might be in the same exact situation? You never know, it might be someone actually experiencing that same thing you experienced in the gym.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to a young woman that experienced that? If you could go back, what would you tell someone else?
If I could go back, I wouldn't do anything different because I learned a long time ago, you must be the advocate of your own body.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I took notes, I asked questions, and I actually, my second round of chemotherapy, stopped chemotherapy, took everything that I had to my doctor and I said, why are we doing this? And I was week 8 of 12 and I had 4 weeks left of the second round of chemotherapy and I stopped it. Oh. And when I went in there, my mom's freaking out, what are you doing? But I took him everything. I kept notes, I kept my blood draws, I kept every ounce of information you could and I learned. And he looked at me and said, you're right. And we stopped chemotherapy that day. So I think if there's anything I can take away, ask questions, be an advocate for yourself, because if you're not, there's not going to be anyone else who is. At the end of the day, doctors are just people. They're people just like us, and they learn just like we do. So if this is my body and this is my life, I have to be the one who's focused on making sure that I go home to my family.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So fight for whatever you think you need to fight for, ask questions, and you know, don't be afraid. Like, their doctors are people just like us at the end of the day. So that would be my advice.
Great.
I love that. Yeah. So the recent surgery that you had, what was there a certain name for it?
Yes, it's called a deep flap fat transfer. So pretty much once my implants were removed, anything that you put in your body forms a capsule around it to protect it from the foreign object in your body. So I opted to not have those implants put back in. So because of that, it was either I go flat and I don't have anything, or I have fat transferred from another portion of my body. Okay. And after 4 children, my stomach was a perfect area to have fat transferred from. So pretty much what happens is they take the capsule out, they take the implant out. I already had everything in place. My original mastectomy, the muscles are taken from your back and they're brought around to hold the implant in, which a lot of people don't know. Yeah. So those muscles were actually clipped and put back in my back, and allowed to reshape. And then all like nerve endings and stuff like that have to be reformed. So luckily I have an amazing surgeon. I'm going to plug him right now. His name is Dr. Chiaset, and he's out of Beaumont Royal Oak, and him and his team were absolutely incredible. He believes in breast implant illness. So what happens is there's nerve endings and everything that are taken from my stomach. My stomach muscles are reconstructed, and all the fat is transferred to my breast, so I didn't have to get implants put back in again.
Oh, good.
So at the end of the day, there's a lot of scars. I am cut from hip to hip. It's a pretty big scar. But, I mean, he did an amazing job, and I don't think I could ask for a better surgeon to do it, because he believes in it. So he took into consideration that I am going to have new scars, and he cut on my double mastectomy scars. So there's no new scars on my breast, which are amazing.
So by doing that surgery, is it like you have breast again? Or
Oh,
just...
yeah.
Okay.
Basically, he took the implant out and then refilled the mold of the skin that was there, because when you have a double mastectomy, they even take your skin because there could be cancer within your skin. So the skin from my back was taken in my original double mastectomy. So everything in the front, I have no feeling at all in my breast whatsoever, all those nerves. So he tried to reconnect nerves. He tried to clip what was done and kind of place my muscles back where they're supposed to be. So you learn a lot. You know, I didn't realize people have good fat and bad fat in their body. You know, so at the end of the day, they want to put the good fat back into your body. So that's where the revision comes in. Some of it may be reabsorbed into my body, but we won't know until, you know, time will tell that. But yeah, it's a pretty extensive surgery, and a lot of women are starting to look into it so they don't have to put implants back in. It's very popular with breast cancer patients. And it's a pretty, I mean, it's extensive. There were the first 48 hours after my surgery, I couldn't even move.
Yeah.
I had to lay in a bed because all these nerve endings had to be reattached. So for the first 48 hours after surgery, you're stuck in a bed in the same position, not able to move whatsoever.
Wow.
Because they wanted to make sure that nothing was jarred to reattach. So I'm starting to get feeling back in my stomach. But that's just going to take time.
Yeah.
So right now you don't have no feeling anywhere?
No, I have feeling for the muscles. If I do too much, it feels like I just did like 6 hours of abs. So like I do feel that, but as far as like the
cramps, almost like
it's more of a burning feeling. Like, have you ever like worked out a muscle so much that it starts to burn?
Yeah.
It's a burning feeling.
Okay.
So I do feel that, but as far as like if you were to touch my stomach right now, I wouldn't.
You won't feel it. It's like numb.
It's completely numb, and that's just the chance you have to take. I don't know if I'll ever get that feeling back. But I wasn't going to put implants back in. That just wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So so I opted for the fat transfer, and again, my surgeon was amazing. Why are you laughing?
You just call it snatched. Now I'm snatched.
Oh,
Do you feel empowered?
no, I do say now I'm snatched,
feel
but I didn't think I had to
empowered?
put that on the podcast.
Like
but I'm
for the,
snatched now.
The whole process.
Yes.
Do you just feel like empowered? Like
I don't even know if empowered is the word, because I feel like everything happened for like I'm here to help other people. I don't.
Yeah.
So not
that's
so much
kinda
empowering
though.
but it changed my life.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to say like I was on a road of craziness, but I was like going through a divorce. I was newly single, and then I had just met my husband, and life was great. And then all of a sudden it's like life slaps you in the face, and you're like, oh, well, here we are. Yeah. So I think that it happened for a reason. And I mean, as a woman, does it make you feel like maybe I do. I would say, well, it's funny. That's like a joke. That's what we were for Halloween. I was Superwoman for Halloween because that was the title that I took on. But sometimes I don't want to say like empowered being cocky, because it's not a cocky thing. It's just it's a purpose, and it's greater than me. And I think that that's where it comes from. Is knowing that this is so much bigger than me, and there's so many women out there who are probably suffering and being told they need to see therapists, and they really don't need to go see a therapist. There's actually something wrong.
Right.
So that's where I think the empowerment comes from, is again that advocacy of your own body and knowing that you're not crazy. So.
Definitely.
So I'll take if it's empowerment.
Take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I will. Cheers to empowerment, because
women empowerment.
If we'll cheers to that. If that's what it is, I'll take it, because I think that in the last 13 years, I've had so many phone calls from people. I've had conversations with people I don't even know that have been referred to me, or hey, would you be willing to talk to this girl, or and then the unfortunate part is people who didn't make it.
Yeah.
You know, there's survivor's guilt. It's a real thing, and it's something that you have to deal with. So if I can continue to help people and talk about it and be transparent and open, then that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast and talking.
Thank you for
about
having me.
Much.
Yeah,
thank
I think
you.
this is going to help a lot of women. That was super informative. I didn't know some of those things. I know we've talked about it multiple times, but some things that you brought up I didn't know about. So
we learn something new every day, don't we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
so keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I got a great team behind me. So.
And you look great. It's only been like a month post-op.
You really do look great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Seven weeks. I'm at 7 weeks. So
you look amazing.
I'm at 7 weeks, and I feel great. Like it's only up from here.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
So I'm excited. But thank you so much, guys. This was great.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? We are the Iconic Circle team.
And you just heard the Realest People in Real Estate podcast.
And I just told my story sitting in the hot seat, and we are looking for our next guest. So if you think that is you and you're ready to sit in this hot seat and tell your story, let us know, because we're looking forward to having you.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. This was great. Thank you so much.
I
was nervous. Yes.
Thank you for
did
being
great.
our first guest.
Yes.
I can't wait for the next. Who's next?
Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned for
you and
who's
Tyra
next.
or I are going to be interviewed.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun. You guys will be in the hot seat next time.
Yes.
Right.
Can't wait. I'm going to get
You did awesome in the hot seat.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
it was
Bye.
very informative.
I'm glad.
So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
That's it. Peace out.
Don't do that.
bye, guys.
Don't play